So yeah, go back a little bit to my journey into radio. So this is me in 2009 in Stroud FM, which is where I did my very first radio show. And I just did like a community-based, very short production course just to do some work. You know, I was just doing some stuff at Stroud FM as I was there at the time, and I just loved it. I just absolutely fell in love with it. It kind of encapsulated everything that I loved, which was music, a little bit of performance. I've always had like a little element of being a performer in me, and journalism and writing I've always loved as well. So yeah, I just really liked it. And from there, I've put a little long and winding road, because it has not been a straight line like most things in life. It's been, I've gone in lots of different directions. And then this is just before the pandemic, when I was still in the studio at Radio 1. The last couple of years I spent doing it all remotely, so there weren't any good pics from that of me sat in my dressing gown in front of my laptop. So basically, talk a little bit about the steps. So as I said, I kind of fell into really this Stroud FM very short, very basic course. I mean, we just learned how to do the most basic of editing on Audacity, and then from there I got like a couple of shows I was doing. I did like a drive time show, and I just jumped into it, got some experience. I was actually 29 at the time, and I decided I should maybe try and think about getting a degree, as I'd never got one at that point. And so I applied to the local university, and even though I didn't have enough kind of points, because I hadn't flunked my A-levels, I got accepted onto the course because of the practical experience that I had. And I think that's like a really important point, is that I think practical experience in this industry speaks like so volumes, because not only does it demonstrate like that passion, but I think there's so much that you just learn in the moment. I feel like demonstrating passion is one of the biggest things that has seen me through. Basically, I've always felt like really passionate about it. I've always been involved in lots of different things, and that's really helped me. It's also meant I've got lots of ideas and a good, overview of things, I think. So I did my degree at the University of Gloucestershire. Whilst I was there, I got as much experience as I could. I was doing kind of festival radio stations. I started doing little reports for the local BBC introducing show. And I started doing traffic reports as well. So I started working, doing traffic reports. That was like my first paid job in radio. And I was terrible at it, because I don't drive and I didn't know what I was saying. But it sounded, it all built towards something. So when I left university and graduated, actually, whilst I was at university, I managed to get an internship at Six Music, which I was like blown away by. So I was working on Steve Lamacq and Gideon Coe's shows. And I think the thing that got me that particular internship was I had loads of previous experience in the music industry. So I'd worked in, over the years, and I could demonstrate like a really kind of, again, like just a lot of passion and some experience in working in music, from like promoting nights and all that sort of stuff. So I did that internship, and then I got into a scheme, like a new intake scheme at the BBC, called the Production Talent Pool. So I don't know if it still exists, but there's certainly quite a lot of these sorts of things. And that was very much like, it had quite a lot of, the application process was really involved, and it was lots of like writing ideas, pitching ideas. Had to go in for like an in-person day and do team building exercises and all that stuff. But anyway, I got into that, and that's when I sort of broke through, I guess, to like getting my first assistant producer, or it was called a broadcast. What was I called? I was called a production coordinator and I worked at Radio 4, which was quite wild to me because I'd never really listened to Radio 4. I didn't consider myself a very Radio 4 person, but I did end up working there for a couple of years. And yeah, great experience in terms of like the more documentary side of radio. So I actually really loved that when I was at uni, was like the sound design, building a story, incorporating field recordings, incorporating atmospheric recordings, and really building that kind of soundscape and that story. So yeah, so I got a lot more experience of that. Whilst I was working there, I was also like kind of constantly listening to radio, listening to things that I enjoyed, contacting people who'd made it. I managed to like get in a position to like pitch documentaries for Radio 1 through an independent production company I'd found in London who were doing a lot of music radio stuff, and I kind of contacted them pretty much out of the blue and said I had some ideas and, you know, I'd love to work with them, I'd love to get some work experience. And I ended up pitching some documentary ideas, and I got my first one commissioned. I ended up making it around my sort of full-time job, so working in evenings and weekends, which was quite intense. But it was yeah, that was a big, you know, that was a big thing for me, a big exciting kind of thing, and I guess gave me a bit of confidence that like my ideas could get commissioned, and so much, you know, so much knowledge of like that whole process of like commissioning and stuff. Then I moved up to London and I was freelancing. I started freelancing at Woman's Hour. I also worked at a music and mental health charity called Raw Sounds, and doing some of my own independent commissions. And then I started working with something else. And again, it was a similar story, really. I kind of approached them. I said, I've got ideas. I offered to do work experience. I offered to sort of shadow. I took, you know, the like entry level jobs, and just to kind of make connections and stuff. And actually, there was a person there who was a producer, and she had been on my internship at Six Music. She'd been an intern at the same time as me, and I think I'd like helped her out or something. Anyway, she always remembered me fondly, and she really helped me out. And she's always backed me. And even last night, she sent me a job that would be good for me. So there you go. Like, you know, you never know where those connections that you're making will lead to.